Hi, I'm Dave, and this is Dave Does Fitness. Lately, it seems like Amazfit is on an absolute tear, releasing new hardware faster than I can review it. So today you're getting a twofer, as I'm going to be looking at two of their latest that came out back to back. The Amazfit Active Max, which I put through its paces for almost a month, and the brand new Active 3 Premium, which I would have had for about 2 weeks by the time I'm recording this, and I'm honestly blown away at a new feature that Amazfit has included on the Active 3 Premium. This watch comes with a feature normally reserved for Garmin's priced 5 times higher. But does it actually work like it's supposed to? And check out the navigation chapter if you want to skip to that part. Now before we jump in, quick disclaimer, Amazfit did send me the Active Max for review, but I dropped my own dollars for the Active 3 Premium. As always, Amazfit has zero input on the video, they aren't paying me for this content, and they're seeing my thoughts for the first time right along with you. Ready? Let's go. So to get some perspective on the Active 3 and Max, I want to look at where we came from. So I've got the Active 2 Premium right here. And you can see the physical shift in design philosophy when comparing it to the newer models. The Active 2 Premium was capable, but it was very subtle and svelte. It is 44 millimeters in diameter, it's very sleek at only 10 millimeters in height, and has the 2-button setup. Now moving over to the Active Max, it's like an Active 2 on steroids, 48.5 millimeter diameter and just over 12 millimeter in height. That's a big boy and worthy of the Max moniker. Now finally we have the new Active 3 Premium. It's definitely bulked up a bit as well compared to the Active 2, being up to 45 millimeter diameter and up to 11 millimeters in height, but the biggest pro move here is going from 2 buttons to 4 buttons. Yes, finally the right number of buttons on an active watch. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. Now the Amazfit Active Max and Active 3 Premium both retail at the same price, $169. While that is decidedly more expensive than the Active 2 Premium at $129, which came with 2 straps by the way, the price point is still firmly on the budget side of the spectrum. So what else do the watches share? What are the big differences between them? Well, both the Max and the 3 Premium hit a very bright 3000 nit display. While the Active 2 weighed in at a barely their 43 grams, the two new watches weigh almost the same, with the 3 Premium coming in at 54 grams, while the Max comes in at roughly 56 grams. This is because the Active 3 Premium has a full stainless steel frame, while the Max opts for a lightweight aluminum bezel. The 3 Premium feels dense and high quality, but the star is of course that 4-button layout. I think it would be pretty much a consensus that being able to control your watch during activities without needing to touch the screen is just better in any scenario I could think of. Another difference between the two models is that the Max uses what Amazfit calls hardened glass, a mineral glass, with anti-fingerprint coating, while the Premium 3 gets a sapphire lens. So the 3 will be more resistant to scratches, but keep your wiping cloth handy, as the standard issue Amazfit Bare Sapphire is here with no oleophobic coating, so you're going to see your fair share of smudges. But hey, with 4 buttons, you can basically keep your greasy mitts off the display. Now both watches come with a mic and speaker, so Bluetooth calling is an option here. You get 5 ATM water resistance, so you're good to go swimming, but you better not be diving. Battery life is another difference between these two watches. The Max is definitely higher, as expected given the size and the name. This watch is rated at 25 days according to Amazfit, and during my testing I got it up to 17 days, which is pretty respectable given the amount of sports tracking I did and GPS activities I did. The Active 3 Premium, on the other hand, is rated for 12 days with typical use, and I got it down to 10% after 10 days of use, although I was using a Helio strap occasionally during the day and doing more indoor workouts than I typically would, so I wasn't that heavy on GPS usage. I'd estimate it might get up to 9 or 10 days of use if it's your only device you're using and you're hitting GPS activities very frequently. Both watches have the latest BioTracker sensor, which is a standard for Amazfit at this point. And finally, both watches have 4 gigabytes of onboard storage, so you can load up on bunches of music and yes, maps as well on both of these. Okay, let's move along to my thoughts on the hardware design. On the design front, I like but not love these watches. Now, to be precise with the physical measurements, you're going to be getting 42 millimeters at the top of the bezel for the Active 3 and just under 47 for the Max. You're getting that full diameter measurement from the bottom of the watch body. That's because the watch kind of slopes outwards as it goes down. Looking at the watch head on, it doesn't look much different than a normal watch, but that profile view just doesn't look nice in my opinion. Then you throw in that there's a decent bit of bezel on the display on both of these watches, and it makes the body of the watch seem that much larger. Although I guess that's kind of the price you pay to have a longer battery life. You have to have some space to fit in that bigger battery, and you can't really have the display maxed out in proportion to the overall size of the watch. Finally, the little red and blue dashes around the bezel. Both point to button locations, which each have a colored dot to match, but for one, it doesn't look too great with different watch faces. But also on the Active 3 Premium, there are 4 buttons, 3 of which are blue, but only 2 on the right having the dashes. I would prefer maybe just a singular dash for the top right action button, but honestly probably no dashes would be better, but definitely not an unequal dash distribution here. So like I said, the design is mostly fine, but if I dig in a bit, there are some nitpicks that just could be a bit better in my opinion. Now on the positive side though, I want to point out that both of these watches have the pivoting lug design. I think this is a pretty ingenious little feature that allows the watch to wear smaller on a small wrist by draping down over the curve of a wrist, but the lugs can also lay flat on a larger wrist to prevent the watch from looking too small. And if you're a watch guy, you know that the lug-to-lug distance is really what makes a watch wear bigger or smaller. Hey, really quick, if you're enjoying this video and this type of content, please throw some support with a thumbs up, consider a sub if you aren't, and look at my analytics, almost all of you aren't subscribed, so yeah, don't be a stranger. The channel is growing, I'd love to have you back. Thanks for your support. Okay, moving along to the software and user interface here, there isn't much new in the software. Both watches are running Zepp OS version 5. And you experience mostly the same controls as you would with other recent Amazfit watches. I will say they do have some small changes that are annoying if you're swapping watches like I end up doing, where a swipe on one watch does something different than the same swipe on the other. I really wish they just have uniform controls for all their watches that are running the same OS version. But if you are making a singular purchase, of course, you just get used to whatever watch you have and it's fine. Now, another benefit of the Active 3 Premium is that the lower right button can serve as a universal back button. So no matter how you enter a menu, you get back with the press of a button. While on the Active Max, you have to reverse your swipe gesture. This has always been a pet peeve of mine with Amazfit's operating system, that you can't just swipe in one direction to go back. Anyways, I digress. You get a bunch of apps, you get a bunch of sports profiles, like 180 plus at this point. I don't know how many, there's a bunch. There's this normal on-device settings, and of course one benefit of the Active 3 Premium is you do get the 4 buttons which can set additional shortcuts, making accessing your most frequently used functions that much easier. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into Zepp OS on the watch in this review since we got 2 watches to talk about, but if you want to see a bit more about that, check out my review of the TRX3 Pro from this past fall. I'll throw a link on the screen so you can check that out, and there's more info on Zepp OS there. But for now, let's keep moving though and take a look at how the GPS and biosensor performed in some workouts. So we're just going to look at 2 runs here, one with the Active Max, one with the Active 3 Premium. And they're both going to have some interval components, so let's hop right in. Our first run here, we're looking at the Active Max, and this is going to be compared with the Forerunner 970 using the HRM 600 ECG chest strap, and the Coros Pace 4 using the armband heart rate monitor, as well as the Pod 2 on my shoe. So looking at heart rate here, we have the Max in blue, Forerunner in red, and the Pace 4 in that bright green color. And things are looking really good here. And you can see like the 3 intervals, and this is where you're going to see some differentiation. But overall, the Max is looking very good. Let's look at this first climb here. You can see everything's looking pretty good here. Everything's very consistent. The Max is keeping up with the other heart rate monitors that are not wrist-based. Let's go and look at this drop here. And again, we could see the HRM 600 is leading the way, right? So that is on the chest ECG. The armband is doing pretty good there, and then actually it kind of jumps up. But basically, you're seeing about the same sort of trend here. We're seeing just maybe 10, 20-second lag, but it's hitting the right numbers, right? You're in at the right spot during the interval, you're getting down to the right reset point there, and then climbing back up. So looking at the average heart rates here, I mean, you could see everything's matching up, so it's no surprise you see 169.1 on the active max. The Forerunner is at 169.8 using that HRM 600 to get that data, and then the Pace 4 using the armband heart rate monitor is at 169.5. They're basically matching up. Very impressive for an interval run. We can take a quick look at cadence here, but pretty much everything is looking like exactly the same. The only slight difference, the Pace 4 with the pod is different, but we're talking about like, you know, half of a step per minute overall. Okay, let's go ahead and look at some of the GPS tracks. So again, Coros green, Garmin red, Amazfit blue. So here we do see the Amazfit, which is on the left wrist, so it's expected that it's going to be on this side. I'm coming this way on the track. Overall, it's pretty good. I mean, yeah, there's a bit more deviation here than you'd like, but we're talking about a few feet. I mean, we're getting into real nitpick territory here. If we go and look, let's see, like going around a bend, and again, it's on the left side here as I'm going this way. Everything's looking good, and this is a GPS that it does not have multi-band GPS here. So you're getting, I forget if it's 5 or 6 systems that you connect to, but this is not a challenging environment. It shouldn't make much of a difference. So I think what we're seeing here is pretty good performance. So let's go ahead and jump over to the Active 3 Premium. Okay, so looking at the Active 3 Premium, this was just worn on the wrist, of course, and then going against a Garmin Forerunner 970 worn on my opposing wrist. Active 3 on the left, Garmin Forerunner 970 on the right. Looking at the heart rate readings here, this is pretty spot on. So we're looking just more for agreement here if one's lagging behind the other in readings. Since we're just dealing with wrist on wrist, we don't really have something considered a control in this run. But I mean, if we just look at some of this is more steady state, and everything is looking pretty spot on, in agreement. If anything, the 3 Premium seems to be reacting to some of the elevations in heart rate and some of the descending heart rate readings a little bit sooner than the Garmin, so pretty impressive there. And I hit a few, I don't know if I'd call them intervals, but I hit like a faster part in the workout. So let's take a look at that and look, and here they're pretty much in agreement. If anything, let's see, actually I would give a slight favor to the Active 3 Premium here again. And again, you know, as it's dropping down, the Active 3 is picking that up a little bit earlier. So what we're seeing here though is basically just agreement between Garmin's top of the line sensor and the Active 3 Premium. If we take a peek at cadence, I mean, we're getting pretty much the exact same readings here. They're really in agreement down to a fraction of a step per minute. So very good readings there. Okay, hopping into some of the GPS tracks here. So basically what I did with this run, I kind of ran around my neighborhood like normal. So you're gonna see tracks here, right? Amazfit blue, Garmin purple, and Amazfit left wrist, Garmin right wrist. So everything's looking pretty good. And here was my little test here. This is just a little looped sidewalk, and I kind of treated it like a track. I ran around it 3 times on a pretty decently narrow sidewalk, so we could kind of see the tracks should be pretty much on top of each other. I'd have to say in that regard, the Forerunner does kind of outperform the Amazfit here. The Forerunner is really right on top of it, while the Amazfit has a little more travel back and forth. But again, we're talking about a few feet. So we're getting down into the nitty gritty, but if we want to compare, you know, as detailed as we can, then that's probably accurate to say that the Amazfit is slightly off compared to the Garmin. But again, the Garmin's using multiband here, a forced multiband, whereas the Amazfit doesn't have multiband. So I would say overall this is very good, and you can see there's no real wandering here. Everything's looking pretty good here. This is a great performance by the Active 3 Premium and a good showing by Amazfit. I mean, great performance for the money, just a really great value watch. Moving along here, this is what I see as an unbelievable feature for a sub $200 watch, and the reason the Amazfit 3 Premium really piqued my interest and I bought it as soon as it was announced. Amazfit has been bringing maps to watches that cost less than a date at a nice steakhouse for quite a while now. But they only recently introduced on-device routing with their premium TRX 3 Pro this past fall. That watch is $399 MSRP and is considered a flagship from Amazfit. But they just included that same feature in the Active 3 Premium at $170. So to put it into context, out of the current lineup that Garmin offers, you need to spend $699 to get a device that has maps, and any current Garmin device with maps will offer routing as well. Now, other brands offer maps at a competitive price, not as low as Amazfit, but Coros can get you some maps starting at $349 on their Nomad model. Suunto has them at $449 on the Race S, but no other brands currently have on-device routing other than Garmin and Amazfit. So you can have it at $170 with Amazfit or $700 with Garmin. Truly crazy. But let's see how it actually performs. So I've got my Forerunner 970 in Active 3 Premium here. So setting up a short round trip 3-mile run in my neighborhood, the Active 3 created a route, but it kind of randomly made a 4.5-mile out and back instead of the requested 3-mile loop. So not a great start. Okay, let's go and check the 970, see what we get here. So Garmin will always give you 3 different options to choose from, which is pretty nice. And here, all 3 are basically spot on for 3 miles and involve running just in my neighborhood without involving any sort of main roads. So this is exactly what you look for with a 3-mile loop. Okay, so let's try to give it some direction now, and we'll head west and travel 5 miles. And whoa, I have no idea what this is. Almost 12.5-mile loop? Let's double check, try again, and yeah, same thing. No idea how this can be so off. This is not good. Let's give the same instruction to the 970, and out of the 3 options, one actually does go on a main road that has no sidewalk, so that would be a very bad idea. But the other 2 get the correct distance and stay in my neighborhood, so I do have some safe and accurate options there. Okay, so before I finalized making this video, I thought I was going to go back and give it one more shot. Maybe these smaller loops just aren't working well. My neighborhood is a decently new development. Maybe the side streets just aren't in the mapping database they're pulling from. I wanted to just give them one more shot, so I decided to go up to 15 miles. That's my typical long run loop, and it uses all well-established roads. Nothing new, no small side roads, and I'm afraid it only gets worse here. The Active 3 goes onto the highway and adds more mileage too for some reason. Okay, so let's give it a direction to follow, and yeah, we're going back to the highway. Okay, let's trim the mileage down a bit. Only 10 miles this time, and we're on the highway again. Man, this is disappointing. After the TRX 3 Pro launched, Amazfit put out an update that was meant to address this issue. Let's see if at least navigating to a point of interest is working well here. So let's go ahead and head to Starbucks for a tasty Frappuccino. No, really don't drink that stuff. There's insane amounts of sugar. It's horrible for you. But all right, it's a few miles away and we're getting an accurate route. This is good. And you can see the pathing looks about the same between the Active 3 and the Forerunner 970 as well. So the POI routing at least does seem to be working as intended. Round trip, wow. Let's call this a work in progress for Amazfit. No, but really, they need to get this fixed properly. There's plenty of roads around my neighborhood that can easily make a loop of up to 7 or 8 miles without hitting any main roads. Leaving my neighborhood, I could easily hit 15 miles on a very simple loop on well-established roads that go nowhere near a highway. Not to mention, not once did the distance actually come in at the requested distance. So for now, in my area at least, I'd say this feature is just plain out not functioning properly. I would not use it or trust it. So this leads me to one of the concerns I have, and this is about Amazfit. It's not about these specific 2 watches here. It's that Amazfit software development timelines and bug fixes often seem to really crawl, and because they do not use a unified feature set for their watches, I could see it slowing even more with so many models that are being added recently. And what I mean by unified feature set is that they didn't update to say Zepp OS version 5.5 so that all watches that support that OS version now have on-device routing. No, they introduced it model by model. So conversely, right now both Coros and Garmin are doing a good job of pushing updates to a number of their models at the same time because they use the same operating system, the same platform, and have the same features. Now, fair enough, I do have to acknowledge they did just extend the support life of the TRX 3 another year past when they initially said they would, up to 2027, so that's great. And from the time I started making this video, and I had to go back and edit this whole section, but I have to say now that they just pushed out on-device routing to both the Balance 2 and the TRX3, which are both promised a while ago, and they finally just delivered on that. So they are slowly but surely keeping their promises to bring features to their capable watches. But there's still just something that has me worried about what seems kind of like independent development efforts on different models and their ability to keep all their watches up to date. And being that their hardware performs great, their sensors perform great, and their software features are the weak point, I just worry about having a large number of models launching in quick succession and their ability to work out bugs and software features, such as what you just saw with their route creation. And you'd never guess what, but there's another running focus watch right around the corner from Amazfit. It's coming fast if you get my drift. In the long run, I think a streamlined model lineup with great support will do more to establish Amazfit as a top player in the space rather than this kind of shotgun approach to hardware models with different feature sets. Basically, I hope Amazfit can find a way to support these watches so they seem like a great value throughout their entire lifespan, not just on the day you buy them. Okay, so I'll get off my soapbox and let's get back specifically to the Active Max and the Active 3 Premium. Which one is the best buy if you're considering each of them? Well, if you have large wrists and you really value having a ton of battery life and a massive display, then the Active Max could be for you. But for me, the decision in the winner here couldn't be more clear. The watch with 4 buttons wins every time. It's just the best way to have a sports watch set up. I appreciate the stainless steel and sapphire lens, but if I'm being honest, I'd take a 4-button watch with aluminum and mineral glass as well. The on-device routing just seals the deal too, even though that round-trip feature needs some real improvement as it currently stands. Hitting those hardware checkboxes with solid sensor performance and a sub-$200 price point is a feat no other brand can touch. But what do you think? Does the button layout matter as much to you as it does to me, or does that bigger display and better battery life win out for you? And then there's the on-device routing too, and you get the Starbucks anytime with it right now, but maybe don't rely on it for round-trip routing. But hey, it's still a tremendous feature and it can always be improved with software updates, and I really hope they do that. So let me know in the comment section what you're thinking, and hey, if you made it to the end, you know I appreciate the hell out of you. As always, I'm Dave and this is Dave Does Fitness. Have an awesome day and stay fit.